up, guys? Welcome back to the channel for day 4 of the Form Check week. Like I said in the last video, the purpose of this week is twofold. Number one, we're trying to hammer through a lot of these form checks, get ourselves closer to being back up to date. Number two, we're trying to promote, we just launched our website, we just launched all this new apparel that we've been talking about for a while. We just brought on Connor Lutz as an online coach for Calgary Barbell, which I personally am super excited about. And we now have a paid form check service. If you guys are looking to get something more in depth, more like a snapshot of what we do with our online coaching clients, and you don't want to wait to be featured on the channel, you guys can go ahead and purchase those as well. All of these great things, calgarybarbell.com. Go check it out. Without further ado, we're going to get to our first video submission. Our first video today is some front squats, and I know we don't talk about front squats a lot, but I figured with this week being a lot of squatting, a lot of benching, and a lot of deadlifting, let's do something a little different. Anyways, getting down to Mitchell's front squats here, he asks if I have any cues for his front squats, specifically as they relate to him being able to keep his elbows up high. Now, anybody out there who knows a little bit about front squatting knows that oftentimes your front squat is limited by what we can hold or what we can stabilize with our trunk and our upper body, more so than what your legs can actually move in that position. It takes a lot of training to be able to get to the point where your lower body is actually more challenged by the front squat than your upper body, especially if you never ever front squat like myself. So, some cues to help you keep those shoulders tighter, and one thing that I think is often overlooked, a lot of times the cues are elbows high, keep your chest up, etc. That's pretty straightforward. One thing that I try to coach my lifters to do, and one thing that I found very valuable when I was doing front squats for a brief period of time, was to work on getting external rotation in the shoulders. So internal rotation, external rotation. External rotation in the shoulders is going to help you lock in the rotator cuff, lock in the lats, get some of those stabilizers in the upper back like the mid fibers of the trap and the rhomboids, all that good stuff firing. It's going to help use all that musculature to stabilize the shoulder joint and ideally keep your shoulders higher. So let's think a little bit about external rotation of the shoulders as you drive them up. It's going to help you get also a little bit more thoracic extension, or maintain thoracic extension better than previous. Hopefully that helps you, Mitchell, and hopefully you guys appreciate something that isn't a squat, bench, or deadlift in the powerlifting style. Our second submission today comes from Joel. Now, Joel is doing some conventional deadlifts, and the biggest thing here, man, is we're starting too far over the bar. What I want to see you do is I want to see you pivot everything back, and I know I've brought up JP Couchy's video on pivoting yourself using your ankles to create a better deadlift starting position, and that's something that I continually refer people to. Go check it out. It's on JP Couchy's JP Couchy's YouTube channel, and he talks about pivoting and shifting your weight back behind the bar better to start your deadlifts. That is a huge cue that I would use for you. Basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that shin angle from being over the bar to a little more straight up and down, which is going to put all the rest of your body in a better position. Once you've got that locked in, I think your deadlift's going to go a lot better for you. One thing that I will note is likely as you make that change, you'll find it becomes more challenging off the floor. One thing we often see in the deadlift is if you're in more of a stiff-legged position and you allow that hip angle to sort of compromise throughout the lift, you're going to have an easier time breaking the bar off the floor, but you're going to get very stuck either right around the knees or at lockout. If we get you into a more optimal position, it's going to be a little bit harder to break the floor, but once you get to the knees, it's pretty much done. So that's my analysis. Hopefully that helps you out, man. We're trying to get that shoulder right above the bar and go from there. Our next couple of videos come from Dalton. Now, Dalton he used to be a sumo deadlifter, and as a result of that, I believe he had some knee injury of some sort, act up, really give him a lot of grief, so he decided to start pulling conventional, which, as you can see here, he does pretty damn well. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that. Conventional deadlift looks really good. But his knee's now feeling a little bit better. He wants to try to get back into sumo deadlifting, probably because it's vastly superior to conventional deadlifting. But he finds that as he transitions back into it, he's getting a little bit of knee pain again. So we take a look at a sumo deadlift from the side. Everything looks pretty good, pretty kosher. Not really seeing many issues here. We take a look at a sumo deadlift from the front, and we see what might be the culprit. What I'm seeing here is a little bit of a disparity between the angle of your toes or your feet and the angle of your knees or your femur. When we get a little bit of a difference there, it makes it really hard to maintain stacked joints, which is often the optimal position for things to work in. That would be the first place that I would start looking, is trying to adjust your stance width, toe angle, and the angle of your knees or your upper leg relative to that toe angle to see if you can find a more comfortable position. The second thing that I would look at is, as you reintroduce sumo deadlifts, I would very much advise to do it slowly. What we can kind of fall into the trap of is thinking, okay, well, I used to do, sumo deadlifts day 2, and then I used to do pause sumo deadlifts day 4, and I do 3 or 4 working sets here, 3 or 4 working sets there. So when I switch back to sumo deadlifting, I'm just gonna implement that program over again. I think that can be problematic in that the large spike in volume can often be enough to re-aggravate an injury in and of itself. What I would recommend that you do, Dalton, is I would try to slowly replace maybe 1 set at a time of conventional work you're doing now with sumo work. So whether that's 1 set of 8 that you do a week, and then 2 weeks down the road, you're doing 2 sets of 8 that you do a week, et cetera, but give yourself a nice long sort of reintroductory period so you're not just jumping back into it and re-aggravating something that used to bother you in the past. Hopefully that advice gives you something to think about with how you're putting sumo deadlifts back into your program, and hopefully in the future we can avoid pissing that knee off again so you can continue to pull sumo deadlifts like the good Lord intended. Our next video submission comes from Devin, and Devin is doing some high bar squats. Now, the first thing that I noticed about the email Devin sent in is that he said he wanted to squat like Lu Xiaojun. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with who Lu Xiaojun is. He's a Chinese weightlifter. He's super jacked, he's super strong, he's a great squatter, great weightlifter. All around, I could see how you would aspire to be like Lu. But if you'll notice closely, Devin is not Lu Xiaojun. So, Devin, the biggest thing that I would try to do, man, is get away from trying to exactly emulate somebody else's squat technique. It looks to me like you would benefit from trying out, or at least playing with, a little bit of a low bar position, a little bit more torso lean, widening the stance up a little bit. Now, that's not to say that those things are inherently better, but to me, at my first impression, my first glance here, it looks like you would probably squat better that way. In your email, you mentioned that you just want to make sure you're squatting safely. And the safest way to squat is going to be squatting in a way that favors your strengths, your weaknesses, and your leverages. So, anytime we look at a top-level lifter, it's going to be very likely that we're going to be able to look at things that they're doing. We're going to be able to try to take some of those bits and pieces away, try it out. Some things work and some things might not. But we have to be honest with ourselves about those things that we try that somebody else can do, but maybe we shouldn't or can't do, that maybe don't benefit us the same way that they benefit that person. A lot of this sport, like every human body, is individual. So it's going to be different, you're going to be different, you're going to squat different, and I think we need to come to terms with that. We need to get away from trying to squat like Lu, and we need to get further towards trying to squat like Devin. Our last video submission today comes from Hamish. Now, Hamish submitted a couple of videos, and Hamish was also actually the first one to purchase the paid form check service from me. So I sent him his big in-depth template, I sent him his personalized video, I gave him all of his feedback, and hopefully that's doing wonders for him right now. But in this email that he sent me, he also sent in his girlfriend's deadlift for me to critique. So we're gonna take a look at that. Now, the biggest thing that I'm gonna get you to do here, it's gonna be very much like what I had Joel do earlier. I'd like you to try and get back behind the bar a little bit more so that we're better able to push the bar off the floor. We're getting a little bit of a loss of position in that sort of lumbar pelvic region, the low back right above your butt, and we're starting to lose that low back just ever so slightly. Now, as the weights get heavier, as fatigue sets in, as you do more reps per set, that's gonna get more and more and more and more exaggerated, and that's gonna cost you more and more and more and more biomechanical efficiency. So if we can keep that back locked in, by creating a little bit more of an upright torso angle, being a little bit more patient off the floor and holding that position and holding everything kind of back behind the bar just ever so slightly. I think that's gonna go a long ways for you. Like I said, Hamish, I hope that's helping you. I didn't get a name for your girlfriend, so I apologize. I haven't referred to you by name because I don't know what it is. But your basic mechanics on your deadlift look very, very good. I think with a few tweaks, you're gonna put a lot more on that deadlift, which is great. So that's it for Form Check today. If you guys are interested, we have our new apparel, like I've mentioned a couple times now. We got Connor's online coaching now available, and we also have our paid form checks if you guys are interested. Keep coming back, because we'll be back tomorrow with more of these gall darn form checks.